Welcome to Medical Parasitology with Nehemiah. In today's class, we'll be looking at General Parasitology Ii, and we'll be considering some important concepts. Number one, we'll be looking at the source of infection, that is parasitic infection. Number two, we'll be looking at the portal of entering into human body. All right. Number three, we also look at the life cycle. Look at the life cycle of parasites. Well, in our previous class, we dealt with General Parasitology 1, and for you to get the most of this video, you need to have listened to that previous class, if you have time, where we gave the comprehensive definition of parasitology, where we gave what parasite is exactly, where we also explain the host-parasite relationship. But today we'll be considering this concept. So we're looking at the sources of infection first. So, for the source of infection, you need to understand that if you are told to explain this in your exam, just understand that the source of infection is seen as a reservoir of that pathogenic infection or pathogenic parasite infection. So we have it as a reservoir. So a reservoir is also seen as the source. If you understand what reservoir means, reservoir, like you can have a reservoir, water reservoir, like the tank. It contains water in it. So use that picture, that mental picture for it. So we can say that the source of infection is simply, or the source of infection or the reservoir of the pathogenic infection is the primary place where the pathogenic parasitic infection is found. I take that again. The source of infection or the reservoir of infection is the primary place where the pathogenic parasitic infection is found. All right. Now, we know that they are divided, they are multifaceted. Multifaceted means they can be found in different places. But under medical parasitology, we divide them into four foundational and clinical domains. So we have four foundational. Let me write it out like this. Four foundational and clinical domain. So, what are these four foundational and clinical domain of the reservoir of these pathogenic parasitic infection? Now, the first one is the environmental domain. Environment. Domain. Now, for the environmental domain, we'll talk about the soil and water when we get there. Then number two, we'll talk about the dietary. So over there, we'll talk about the foodborne diseases or foodborne pathogenic parasites. Then number three, we'll talk about the biological vehicles. So we have the biological vehicles. Then number four, we'll talk about the anthropogenic, which is person-to-person transmission. Okay, now what we're going to do is that we'll pick up the first one. Let me have a red pen now. For the first one, which is this guy, so we want to talk about the environmental domain. So let's use environmental domain. Now, we're going to pick the first one, which is the soil. All right, let's explain that. Now, for that of the soil, you need to know for the soil to be contaminated, it's mostly contaminated with human excreta. That's what we have: the soil plus the feces or the human excreta or excreta. Okay, the soil plus excreta. The human feces or excreta contains the egg and larva. Okay, it contains egg and larva of the parasitic or parasite species. Okay, now the egg and the larva of this parasite species contaminate the soil, and when it contaminates the soil, it then produces what we call geohermites. Then produce what we call as geohermites. Geohermites is the word there, soil for geo. Hermites are those worms that are found there. So over there, we could be looking at this geohermite, some of those species of geohermite or the pathogenic parasites that are found in the soil that have been contaminated by human feces or excretas is, for instance, the Ascaris lubricoides. Okay, the Ascaris lubricoides, that's one. Two, Aniclostoma duodenale. Aniclostoma duodenale. Then we have the Strongyloids stacularis. Then we can also have another one of those is the Necata, Necata americanus. Okay, we have the Necata americanus. Then we have another one. Okay, let's think about that. Right? Okay, this one we could have for now. If there's another one we could put there, but these are the four major ones that are found as geohermites or that are found in the soil. All right, when they are contaminated with human excreta. Meanwhile, we're going to move to the one of the water. For the water, now, the water itself could have the human excreta in it. When the water contains human excreta or feces in it, it's that human excreta. That human excreta can contain the egg, the larva, and some viable cast. Now, this egg, larva, and viable cast contaminate the water. And when they contaminate the water, there are some other species of pathogenic parasites you will find in that water. Remember that the species of pathogenic parasites you will find in the soil is different from that of the one you will find in water. And just remember one more again. Another one here will be Trichoria trichoris. Okay? Or the Trichoria trichoris. Let me write it well. Stay correct. So, Trichoria trichoris. Now, this is known as the whipworm. This one is found in the soil. Now, meanwhile, these guys is different from the ones that is found here. These species are different from the one that is found in contaminated water. For contaminated water, you're going to be having species like the Entamueba, histolytica. You're going to have some entamoeba histolytica. We're going to have some Malatidium, Malatidium latu. Okay, now let's make use of these two species. There are other species that is found in water also, but let's concentrate on these two species. If there is more, we are going to add it to it. All right, now for the course of this video, you need to understand that there are other species, and you can have an assignment to go and look for that also. But in your medical school, or if you're writing a medical exam, you'll be asked to list maybe 5 of these species of parasitic pathogens that is found in water, like we have here. Or you can be asked to list 2 from each side or 3 from each side of the zooemite and that of the contaminated water. So we have discussed environmental domain with this illustration. All right, so the next thing to do is that we're going to move to the dietary. Now for the dietary, you know, that's the food you eat, your nutrition. We'll talk about the food and the fruits and vegetables. Okay, now the food, the fruit, the vegetables. Now all those, you can use contaminated water by mistake, or maybe you don't know about that. You use contaminated water to wash your vegetables. It can cause the pathogenic parasites to enter into the vegetable. For instance, the entamoeba histolytica that causes diarrhea, it can enter into that vegetable and contaminate the vegetable. And you can also, maybe your food, you don't handle it where you put it on the soil, and the soil contains any of the species of these we have mentioned, either the Aniclostoma duodenum or Ascaris lubricoides and the Trichoria trichoris. It can affect your food. It can actually affect or contaminate the food or the fruit or the vegetables. Now, before we move ahead, I need to understand something. Let's clean up this side of the board, okay? Before we go ahead, you see the food that we're taking, all right? For instance, if you take in a fish, a freshwater fish that is contaminated or that is infected with larvae of these parasites, like for instance, one of the species that is found in freshwater fish. If you are writing a medical exam, you might be asked the species of parasite that is found in freshwater fishes. That is called the Diphyllobotrium latium. Diphyllobotrium latium. So this is not latium, this is coli. Latidium coli. Why this is Diphyllobotrium latium. Now, for that is found, this is for freshwater fish. For that is found in crab and crayfish. Crab and crayfish, you can have the Paragonimus westermani. Okay, Paragonimus westermani. All right, now this is undercooked fish or undercooked crayfish or crabs. Now, for instance, you can also have an undercooked pork. You can also have an undercooked pork. Now, for the undercooked pork, many of us from our colleges, before we get into the university, we are told that undercooked pork contains Taenia solum, correct? So let's just put that we know already. We know that it contains the species of Taenia solum. There's another species of Taenia that it contains, which is the Taenia sagnanta. Asiatica. Now, someone will ask a question. I think Taenia sagnanta is found in undercooked beef. Yes. Taenia sagnanta, not Taenia sagnanta asiatica. Tania saginata ecytica, which is a form of tapeworm that is found in Asia, is found in undercooked pork. Then we can have another one, Trichinella vaginalis. Trichinella vaginalis. This is also found in pork meat. We can also have another one again. Let's recall. Let's recall it. Sarcocysts, Silhominus, right? Sarcocysts, Silhominus. You need to be careful with these spellings, because if you fail the spelling, you have already failed, you won't get the answer. If it's a medical school, you fail any of this spelling, you fail the answer. So as you're writing, you also be cross-checking what we are writing. When you finish jotting down, go back to your textbook and cross-check whether those things we wrote is correct. All right? So you'll be very familiar with the spelling. And if it's the first time, because this is an introductory aspect, don't be afraid of all these medical terms. If you go over it over and over again, you'll be familiar with them. All right, so we move to the next one. The next one is the undercooked beef. Undercooked beef. So for the undercooked beef, you need to put the Tania again, Tania saginata. And then remember, we now have the sarcocyst, homunius. All right, so we now have again, Toxoplasma gondii. Okay, now these are found in undercooked beef. Then in watercress, you have the fasciola. The watercress, you have the fasciola. All right, so this one we've got, if you look at the dietary, which is the portal of entry, if you consume any of these food that is contaminated with these species of pathogenic parasites, it will cause harm, it will cause infection, disease in your body. All right, so let's move to the next one. The next one is biological vehicle. Now, for the biological vehicle, we're looking at some of the arthropods, like the female mosquito, which is the Anopheles mosquito. Anopheles mosquito. The Anopheles mosquito causes or transmits this Plasmodium falciparum. Let's write it well. Anopheles mosquito transmits Plasmodium falciparum. Plasmodium falciparum also transmits Plasmodium malaria. Okay, now Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium malaria, Plasmodium quartan, Plasmodium vivax, all of them come from the female Anopheles mosquito, and they can cause malaria infection or disease. All right, you can see now that malaria is caused by a parasitic or pathogenic parasitic species known as Plasmodium falciparum or the rest of those, Plasmodium malaria, Plasmodium vivax, or quartan. So we know that we now talk about another arthropod like the test fly. Test fly transmits a species of parasite known as Trypanosome. Trypanosome spp. Now, this Trypanosome spp is capable of causing African sleeping sickness, which is known as trypanomiasis. Trypanosomiasis, all right? Now, this is caused by biological vehicle. Okay, there are vectors that transmit these pathogenic parasites into the body. Okay, now we move to the next one. We move to the next one. The next one we have over there is the anthroponotic portal of entry, which is person to person. Well, what does this mean? For the one of person to person, if someone, like what we call the fecal oral route, we'll explain this and then we'll explain the sexual contact. Now, someone can have this pathogenic infection and then he or she goes to the toilet, and then after using the toilet did not wash the hand and then clean up with tissue and then take the hand. Some of these parasitic pathogens might be found in the finger, and they put it in the food and the person eats it. The person becomes infected with this parasitic pathogenic infection. Or maybe not the person, actually the person shakes you, you are innocent, you don't have this parasite in your body. Someone has the infection and then he goes to the toilet, and then after using the toilet they don't wash their hand, just clean up the boots, and then comes out and shake you with that hand. And then shaking you with that hand, it can cause the parasite to go from the person's hand to your own clean hands, and then you use your hand and eat, you've been infected with this pathogenic parasite species. Now, these species are the ones that we mentioned before. Now, those species that are found in human excretors, okay, those geohermites, the one of the Ascaris lubricoides, or the Aniclostema duodenum, or the strongylites, stacularis, and the rest of them. Now, these things can be transmitted from an unhygienic hand, okay, to you, and then you put it in your mouth, and then that becomes a problem. Fecal, that is anus; oral, that is in the mouth. Okay, now we move to the next one, which is sexually transmitted sexual contact. Well, the fluid or the mucus that comes from sexual interaction can transmit a particular kind of pathogenic parasite that we know of, which is the Trichomonas vaginalis. Okay, so this Trichomonas vaginalis is the most common. That doesn't mean that's all, but that's the most common one that is being transmitted through sexual contact. So the next thing we need to look at under the concept we have looked at, where we're looking at in this video, is to look at we've looked at the source. Now we're looking at the portal of entry into the human body. Okay, I can clean up this portal of entry into the human body. So we have the portal of entry. Now, the portal of entry, there are numerous, there are a lot of those, but we're going to list it down first before we begin to look at it. One is GIT, which is the gastrointestinal tract. Okay, that's one. Two is integumentary. Okay. Three is sexual contact. Four is respiratory tract. Five is okay, is all right, is iatrogenic. Okay, we have six. Okay, all right. So this one we've got. We've got 1, which is GIT, gastrointestinal tract. 2, integumentary. 3, sexual contact. 4, respiratory tract. 5 is iatrogenic transmission portal. All right, respiratory tract portal, portal of entry, sexual contact portal, integumentary portal, and that of this guy there is GIT, gastrointestinal tract portal. So let's just explain from any of those. Pick anyone. Much time. Okay, now let's pick up the first one, the GIT. Now for the one of the GIT, what's happening here is still through the fecal oral route. You see, what you consume and the food you ingest, you take into your body, the hygiene of that food is important. The place where the food is prepared is important. Without that, all those pathogenic parasites we have discussed about, maybe the undercooked pork that contains the Tania solum or Tania saginata acetiaca, or even the Trichinella vaginalis, or even any of the sarcocized Silhominis, or whatever of those. Now, anything you digest into your body, look at those infection we list under infection parasitic species. We list under the undercooked fresh fish, undercooked pork, undercooked beef, okay, undercooked crab and fish. You can ingest those things into your body, and then when you inject it into your body, it will go to cause pathogenic or parasitic disease in your body, because it is still your digestive tract. It is going into your mouth through your digestive tracts. All right, so that's what you're going to get from that of the digestive tract. And meanwhile, apart from that, you can also get your hands contaminated in the soil. Maybe you play with, you touch the soil. After touching the ground or the soil, you fell on the ground, and then you did not wash your hands. You took that hand, and that place might be contaminated with geohermite, just as Asclepiades that we talked about, or the any of the geohermite that you have there that we talked about before. And then you take the food and you eat. It will contaminate your system. I want to really talk about the integumentary. That's very important. Now, for the one of the integumentary, I want you to pay attention to it. We're going to explain it in 3 forms. The first one is fecal oral route. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the skin and the mucous membrane and the mucosa membrane. Now, this pathogenic parasites can penetrate through the skin barrier. Now, for instance, in the soil, you can have some filaria larva of hookworm, You can have some list of aniclostoma, duodenale. You can have the strongyloids stacularis, okay, stacularis, and then you can even have the Necato americanus. Okay, you can have these guys in the soil, and then when you come in contact with that soil, it can penetrate through your body and infect you with this parasitic infection. You see, for you to understand medical parasitology, you need to think or merge it with something that is real. You see, don't just study these grammars and all these medical terms. If you want to begin to cram them, it's gonna be difficult for you. The best thing to do is to relate them with everyday activities. All right, everyday activities. You know, I've told you that gastrointestinal tract. I've told you what the one we're taking. And please, when you're studying, notice the particular pathogenic parasite that is for a particular food. Particular pathogenic parasite that is related to a particular food that you take in, all right, or a particular source or domain of source of transfer or propagation, okay, and notice the portal of entry. That's how to explain those things, all right? Now, in this guy here, which talk about the skin and the mucosal membrane, they can penetrate through the barrier of the skin and then causes the infection. Well, if you swim in water that is already contaminated, so if you have contaminated water, this one is from contaminated soil under the portal of entry through the integumentary, breaking through the skin and the barrier, a skin barrier and mucosal membrane. Now, if you are swimming in contaminated water, the species of schistosomas can penetrate into your body. Schistosomas. Okay. Now, the species of schistosomas that can penetrate into your body, let's use Schistosoma japonicum. We have Schistosoma mansoni. Right? We have Schistosoma hematobium. Now, this is found in water. All right, when you're swimming in water, and then this pathogenic parasite are in it, they can penetrate through your skin and cause pathogenic parasitic infection. All right, so there are also some other means, some biological vehicle, like the vector arthropodas that will transfer this into your body. We've talked about the testefly transferring trypanosome spp, which causes transpanomeasis, and the female mosquito, that is Anopheles mosquito, that transmits Plasmodium falciparum. But we didn't talk about a particular filaria worm, okay? A particular filaria worm, or filaria nematoda, that's using vector means or biological means, still under this guy. So, you know, it can pierce through your body because we're talking about getting entrance into the skin barrier or into the mucous barrier. So, we have talked about previously, I think it's still over there, under the biological means, you see it there. Now, we can talk about the filaria nematodes. Now, these filaria nematodes, I want to pick out a particular one of my interest. There are lots of those. Oh, my pen is fainting. Wuchereria bancrophiti. Okay, Wuchereria bancrophiti that causes elephantiasis. Now, do you know that it is being transmitted by mosquito? We're going to discuss that in a video entirely. How does mosquito causes elephantiasis? How does it transmit the species or pathogenic parasite that causes elephantiasis? That's a discussion for another time. All right, so move to the next one. What's the next one? The sexual contact. Now, for those that are involved in oral sex, see, oral sex, you can be infected, all right, or even through kissing, you can be infected with entamoeba, gingivalis. Okay, so that is the parasite that has been transmitted through kissing, entamoeba gingivalis, or through oral sex. All right, and then if you are having anal sex, having sex through the anus, which I don't know why people are having sex through the anus, that's not the proper way to do it. And the person can be infected also with a particular parasite known as the Giardia nambilia. Okay, you can also add this guy to the first time we talked about source of parasitic infection, and we talked about water as a source of parasitic infection, talking about environmental domain. When it is contaminated with human excreta, you can also add this guy there. So Giardia nambilia. Okay, now this is a particular parasite that is found in homosexuals. So this is how medical parasitology works. They need you to know the parasite's name, pathogenic parasite name, and where it is found, the source, and the portal of entry. You see that now? So, and then you can also now know the disease that that particular parasite causes. Now you're making progress in medical parasitology. All right, so the next thing to do, respiratory tract. Okay, the particular parasite that is found here is the pinworm, which is known as Heterobius vermicularis. The pinworm, which is known as Heterobius vermicularis. Enterobius vermicularis, maybe you are sleeping on the bed, and then it can be found on your bed, and then you want to dress, you want to keep the bed clean, and then some of those, this pinworm is a lightweighted stuff, species, and then it goes to the ambience or the environment of your of the air you're breathing. You breathe that in, it goes through your respiratory tract, and then you are infected. Now we have the iatrogenic. Now, under the iatrogenic, maybe someone is infected with Plasmodium falciparum, and then you collect the blood sample to transfuse blood into another person. The person will also be infected because the blood is collected from an individual that is already infected with Plasmodium falciparum. Maybe he is asymptomatic. Asymptomatic means he's not showing any symptoms. That can also cause the parasitic infection in the individual that is healthy. Okay, and also it can come from mother to a child. Okay, it can go from a mother to a child through the placenta. So now we're going to go to the life cycle of parasites. But because of our time, we're going to call it a day today. Why? Because we don't intend to bore you with so much parasitology gibberish. We tend to take it poco, little by little. In our general parasitology 3, maybe we're going to merge the life cycle with other concepts we need to know until we are through with everything on general parasitology. If you have not watched a video on the previous general parasitology 1, is a building up of concepts, so you can understand this concept, understand the other concept. And I want you, when you study, please don't just study it concept by concept. Understand this one, understand this, understand, and then you build the concept like that. Okay, thanks for watching. Have a great day.